welcome to the Leader Show. It's a great honor to have you here. You have accomplished many great things in your career. You're very well recognized space industry expert. And during the past 25 years, you have held executive leadership positions at Echostar in the Netherlands, SES in Luxembourg, various Eutelsats, ViaSat partnerships in France, Italy, the US, SpaceX, and also Maxar technologies, and so many more. But I would love to know more about you as a person. How would you describe Robert in your own words?
I guess all I can say is that I'm a very driven person, but I'm also a bit of a dreamer in terms of what I love to out of life. And one of the things I truly, truly love out of life is understanding our relationship, the Earth's relationship with the environment around us in space, you know? And it's such an inspiration to me to learn and learn and learn every single week, every single month, every single year, because there's so much unknown that we continue to discover now, that we get developing better technologies to do things. So for me, you know, I guess the description of me is that I'm absolutely a space cadet, and I will be until the day I die, because I really, really believe that understanding, managing, and even working in this environment around the Earth and outside of the Earth is an important thing for survival of our species. So yeah, it's you can call me a space cadet or a space freak or whatever you like, but I think that's a good description of what drives me on a daily basis, right?
Thank you so much. You were born in Oakland, California, and you were raised in the US. And how did your career in space started? When you were younger, did you ever envision yourself doing something like this? Was there someone or something that really inspired you?
You know, it's a series of little events that when you think back, you say, okay, that's probably where my real, inspiration started. But there are a few things. There's one that I thought about last year. I was with my father and my brother, and we were living in Bolivia in South America at the time, because my mother was Bolivian. So we went to the Andes, and we used to go hunting and just walk around 3-4 hours from the city in jeeps. And all of a sudden, I saw these little droplets that looked like almost like rain droplets, but they were rocks in the shape of rain droplets. They were all going in the same direction, you know, on the side of the mountain. And then I asked my father, "Dad, what is that? Why are these shapes so strange, these rocks?" And he said, "Oh, I think that was a small meteorite that came in, collided with, made this big depression that we see here. And that's molten rock that went away from the impact zone." And I thought, oh my gosh, what a crazy thing. Something came from space and created these things. There were other things like, you know, I was, because I was, I guess as a young kid, I was very much a musician and a language person and so forth. And I never really considered myself to be a scientist of anything. So for me, that was a kind of always an inspirational goal to say, oh, wouldn't it be incredible for me to be in those white jackets and building something very, very complex, like a rocket or something like that. It was more just sort of a vision that I thought that will never happen, but it would be so cool, right? And so I have to say that, you know, for me to have these little things that happened, and then getting my first set of glasses, because I didn't know that I couldn't see very well. But when I got my first set of glasses and I can see these dots in the sky that were just beautiful stars, and I could start, you know, seeing them every night, and especially living in Bolivia, you could see some incredible skies out there, right? At 4,000 meters of altitude. So all these kind of elements together just really, really started connecting me to space. And I didn't know it's going to be my lifelong career, but those little bits and pieces kind of influence you as a kid, I suppose.
You have an impressive track record in groundbreaking satellite technologies and services around the world. Why satellite technologies and services are important? How would you explain this to people in simple terms?
Well, you know, we maybe a lot of people do not really have an awareness of just how much we are today depending on satellite technologies. And you know, we've launched possibly 8,000 to 9,000 satellites in the history of humankind since '57, when the first satellite was launched by Russia. And out of those 9,000 or so satellites, about half of them are operational today, right? So 4,500 or so. In the next decade alone, there's a plan to launch 60,000 satellites just in 10 years. So you can imagine the amount of technology that's going up there. In simple terms, the way it influences our life today is whenever you use your phone to do any kind of location tracking or a Google Map kind of session, or you want to find out a store that's close by to you or anything like that, that uses GPS satellites. When you're trying to find out any kind of imaging about weather and so forth, that uses weather tracking satellites. Asset tracking, finding out where boats and ships are going and airplanes are going. All these technologies depend on satellites to be able to locate, location tracking technologies, Earth observation technologies, and now that we're getting so much data back from these thousands of satellites, we're starting to do some incredible analytics that are delivering services to people in everyday life in terms of insights. How much water do I put into my agricultural field? And maybe I'm overwatering or underwatering and so forth. So all these things that influence our daily lives that we don't really realize are driven by satellite technology, right? So space is beyond that, of course. Now we're able to go further and farther away, and go into other objects around our solar system, and that is bringing a whole new area of space exploration, where not only can we send robots out there, but we're starting to vision to send people to further away objects that will be around us, including lunar and Martian type kind of habitats. So it's a very exciting time to be in space today. And I think a lot of people don't realize just how much is happening there. It's a growth area that is just dramatically expanding right now.
Thank you so much for this. One of the missions of the space industry is to lead to high-speed global travel. How important is this in the 21st century?
Well, I guess I can put it in this way, right, Titina? We used to travel by ocean, by ship, and it would take anywhere from a month and a half to 3 months to cross the ocean, and it was a very slow process. And the goods and services especially the goods that were transferred over, people and goods, took a long time to get from point A to point B, especially across continents. So that was a very limiting factor for global commerce back then. As soon as we started flying and had airplanes that were propeller driven, and then the jet came in to even shorten those times for travel, we were able to envision being able to transfer goods and people in a much, much shorter time frame, which obviously increased the amount of intercontinent commerce. And that, of course, creates development for societies. And I think if we look at space travel, there are two things that are happening right now. One is hypersonic travel, which means Mach 5 to Mach 8, Mach 9, Mach 10, let's say, traveling through the atmosphere, but in the very high altitudes, where you'll be able to shorten the time between point A and point B. And that's something that several companies are working towards today. I would say in the next 10 years or so, you'll start seeing cargo at least flying hypersonically from point A to point B. Now, we're looking at 10 to 20 years, you'll start seeing people traveling that way, but also looking at orbital travel, meaning you go with a rocket straight up to space, and you come down at the other side of the Earth within a half an hour, let's say, right? To Japan, from the US to Japan in 30 minutes. Very feasible today. We're landing multiple rockets to go to orbit to deliver satellites today. So we can definitely do that for people as well. So, and that's coming. Of course, regulation will have to follow and allow that for people to do that kind of travel, but it is coming. It will be a reality because it already is, technically speaking, a reality today.
I was saying that is very, very exciting. I'm sure a lot of people will be excited about that, and we'll have even more knowledge about space itself.
Yeah, but you can imagine the commerce, the kind of commerce that we will have when you can, go leave in the morning and have a meeting in Japan and then come back, in the afternoon for lunch or dinner in the same day. Today, that's a four-day travel schedule today between the time differences and the time to travel and coming back. So we're really shortening that 4-day period to basically within the same day, and that will change commerce and the way people work around the world in a dramatic way. And it's coming. It's definitely coming.
Absolutely. I come from an academic background myself, and I believe education is key to innovation. According to you, Robert, how important is space education and how this is going to evolve in the next 10 years in the US and the UK?
Yeah, I think the space industry has probably a bit of a stigma of being very, very technical, and you have to be an engineer to be in the space industry and so forth. And I think in the last 5 years or so, it's been helped a lot by people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos that are very, very vocal and very public, and they have tens of millions of followers on, on social media. It's helped a lot to make people aware that space is very, very cool, and there's a lot of great things happening, and we can send a lot of rockets and a lot of satellites and a lot of infrastructure into space. So that process of educating is important because that makes funding available from governments if it's government driven, but it also makes funding available from institutionals and private partners when they see this following, this mass following of technologies that make our lives better by developing infrastructure in space. So education is very important from that point of view, but it's also on the other side, it's I think important to realize that you don't have to necessarily be an engineer to be in space today anymore. You can be a financier, you can be a social media person, you can be even a teacher to be in the space industry. And I always use this example in the past and a few other discussions. And one of my previous companies, I'm not going to say which one, we had hired a teacher from a high school to help write the proposals to the customers. Because the boss really wanted to make sure the proposals were beautifully written, nice paragraphs, good punctuation, and so forth. So you see, you don't have to be a space engineer to be in the space industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What are your future plans related to space, Robert? And what advice would you give to young, aspiring leaders that dream of having a space-related career?
From my point of view, as I said before, don't limit yourself to thinking that you cannot be in space unless you are, an aerospace engineer or something like that, right? There's so much happening today. Just in the moon, companies participating in moon projects today. There are over 20 companies today. Some of them private, some of them using funds that are released by space agencies to start developing infrastructure to be actually a habitational, to have a habitational presence in the moon, not just visiting and leaving. And so those kind of things require all kinds of technologies, but also all kinds of, I guess, input from people that can sell the story, right? Social media will be important. Financing will be very, very important. And, we're looking at space projects. Typically, out of these space projects, they take, a cycle of 2 to 3 years. You don't just develop something and sell it the next day. It takes a lot of testing and so forth to get things done. So it takes finance people, it takes social media people, it takes storytellers to sell the idea of and the benefits of space as well. I think don't limit yourself as a young person to thinking I have to be an aerospace engineer to be in space, because that's no longer the case. Today there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and many of them, just like me, as a young musician, let's say, ended up in space, and you can do it too. It's just a matter of, is this something that makes you go wow, that you are excited about, that when you get up in the morning you think about? Then you're a natural candidate for it, because you will find your place, be it in finance or in media or in writing or in engineering for that matter. you will find your place. It just has to excite you. That's all. That's my recommendation.
Thank you very much, Robert. It was really a lovely interviewing you, and you really inspired me as well. So thank you so much for everything, and I wish you all the very best with your future projects.
Thank you, Titina. It was my pleasure.